What up, what up, what up? It's your boy, Cardinal Red. And we back for some more of that Ali Land boxing talk, people. And today we talking no MayPac 2. Should Manny Pacquiao retire? Alright, y'all. I wanted to touch on this because, there's a lot of news out surrounding Manny Pacquiao and his next fight. It's always a spectacle in between fights when it comes to Pacquiao, because Pacquiao's the type of guy, he lets the promoter handle the fights, and he lets his team normally handle who the next opponent is. I'm pretty sure he has some type of insight in on it, but I think that he's the type of guy who would, unless somebody's challenging him, he's going to let his team set up what's the most profitable and the best thing for him moving forward, whatever the best fight for him moving forward is. And when it comes to that, I feel like his team is really, they really want that MayPac rematch. They really feel Pacquiao was injured during the first fight, and that was the whole reason the fight didn't go the way most fans thought it should have went. And even though the fans who felt like he won the fight, they still want, a definitive answer on who won that fight. And, with him signing to PBC, it opened him up to a whole new bracket and stable of welterweight fighters. But the unfortunate thing about PBC is Pacquiao is a pay-per-view attraction. Whether people are still selling 3, 4, 5 million pay-per-view, that's not happening anymore. Not in boxing, that is. But as far as being the biggest pay-per-view seller in boxing, there are only 3 names in this current year who hold big weight, when it comes to selling pay-per-views, and especially in the U.S. And I'm basing it solely on U.S. because Anthony Joshua was doing his thing where he's at, Nonito Donaire, he gets good airtime, even though I don't think he would be able to, sell as big as a Pacquiao pay-per-view. But, you got guys like Wilder, you got guys like Tyson Fury, you got guys like Anthony Joshua, I spoke of. You got guys like Amir Khan who can actually still sell pay-per-view events only because he's so big in the EU and Arab Emirates. But when it comes to these PBC fighters, because, PBC is starting a new wave in boxing of you not having to pay premium dollar for high-level fights. A lot of these PBC fighters' fan bases are solely based around being able to see these fights for free. And when it comes to trying to cross them over into making pay-per-view dollars, I think PBC is having a problem with, drawing in a large enough crowd to make it worth putting on pay-per-view. Which is the reason they pursued Pacquiao so hard, I believe. I don't think it was even Pacquiao pursuing them. I think it was them pursuing Pacquiao because they know Mayweather, although a big part of PBC is not willing to step in the ring with those guys, which just says a lot about Floyd Mayweather, his character, his personality, him as a boxer. And I even him as a businessman, it's almost selfish in a way that they're expecting Pacquiao to push these guys' careers forward. Yet Floyd Mayweather is an actual investor within PBC boxing, and is not willing to get in the ring to put some of these guys over. I always compare wrestling and boxing because there's a lot of there's a lot of similarities to the way a young star comes up within the sport of boxing. You know, in wrestling they call putting them over. And you know, Floyd Mayweather is one of those boxers who refuses to put these young guys over. Whether it's a win or a loss, you know, you're still putting them over. Canelo doesn't have the name he has now without that Mayweather fight. You know, that Mayweather fight, it meant a lot for Saul Canelo Alvarez's career and pushing them out to an American audience and him not just having a Hispanic or a Mexican or a Latino audience south of the border, if you want to call it. But you know, it takes that sometimes for a young guy to get his push into stardom. What these guys actually need is somebody to put them over, and Pacquiao just happens to be the only cash cow left in boxing. Pacquiao just happens to be the only sellable boxer left for pay-per-view fights. Pacquiao just happens to be still that talented at 40 years of age. And I just feel like Pacquiao's given a lot more to the sport than Floyd Mayweather has. If you look at the amount of wars he's had, if you look at the amount of just young fighters he was willing to get in the ring with in their prime and not come up with an excuse, well, this guy is bigger than I am, or this guy is stronger, or I got to do this to make weight, I got to do that to make weight. He didn't give you an excuse, and that's not because he doesn't speak English well. He didn't give you an excuse because he's a warrior, man, and he has the boxer warrior spirit, and he has the spirit of, you know, I do this for the fans, and I do this for money, but I do this more for fans. And you know, I think some people, they just have it in them, man, to where, you know, money's not everything. You know, Pacquiao's been homeless, he's been rich, he's been in between. And through all of that, his personality's never changed. You know, most people, when they get money, their personality, it flips. And Floyd Mayweather is the perfect example of this. If you look at Floyd Mayweather as Pretty Boy, Floyd Mayweather in the Olympics, and Floyd Mayweather what he is today, you're going to see three different people. And when you look at Manny Pacquiao as a youngster, Manny Pacquiao when he started making a name, and Manny Pacquiao today, there's a lot more similarities with those three characters. Even though he's not the same person he was when he came in at 16, 17 years old, body-wise, you know, his body looks a lot different, but his personality is exactly the same. Very humble, very caring, very encouraging, warrior spirit, and all around just good person. And you know, boxing, it needs more people like that, because boxing, like I said, is a sport very similar to wrestling, and where these guys need somebody in certain situations. If they're not able to just burst onto the scene and be a phenomenon, everybody needs somebody to put them over. And it's just crazy that Mayweather refuses to put any of these guys over, and he's an investor in the actual company. You know, they're looking for Pacquiao to put these guys over, where Pacquiao has nothing to really gain from it, except for maybe getting his young fighters on PBC, to where maybe Bob Arum wasn't willing to give them a chance. And, you know, with all that being said, man, I just feel like if Pacquiao doesn't get this MayPac rematch, should he actually try to put these guys over and risk a tarnish to his legacy, risk perhaps being beaten by a lesser opponent. Take a shorter payday to boost somebody else's career up. And, you know, like I said, possibly take, and what really irks me is the possibility of his reputation taking another tarnish, the way it did after the Marquez fight, the way it did after the Jeff Horn fight. And for him to have to continue boxing to kind of save face, you know. And I don't feel like that's fair, man. I really don't feel like that's fair to Pacquiao. I don't feel like that's fair to his fans, you know. I don't feel like he should even have to chase this Mayweather fight. I feel like there's a much bigger fight out there for him. Hard to make, very hard to make the fight that's out there for him. But if it was actually to be made, it's the biggest fight in the sport of boxing at the moment. It's the biggest fight. I'm going to repeat that 3 times. It is the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. And it might be the fight to save the sport of boxing. Because I feel like even if we do get the MayPac rematch, it's not going to save boxing from the downslide that it's on. Boxing is on a huge downslide at the moment. And even with the MayPac rematch, I don't feel like that fight saves boxing, because I feel like a lot of fans are still going to be split. Well, Mayweather beat him the first time. If Pacquiao wins this time, you know, Mayweather fans will have their excuse that they use for why he won. And, you know, there may be a trilogy involved in it. Now, if that was to happen, you know, that could change the dynamic of boxing to where boxing might go up a little bit. If we could actually get 2 fights, you know, and it could MayPac could turn into a trilogy, that might help boxing. But I feel like the other fight that's out there for Pacquiao saves boxing. I feel like that it brings so many fans together that it could possibly really, really pull boxing out of the dumpster that it's currently stuck in. And I don't feel like these young guys, with the exception of a few, you know, I'm not a hater. You know, I praise the people I feel like are doing the most for the sport. And, you know, Michael Jordan is great because he gave so much to the sport. Manny Pacquiao is great because he gives so much to the sport. Although you might like him or you might hate him, Mayweather is great because he did bring something new to the sport, which is the ability to make more money than boxers have ever made. So I can give him credit for that, but I don't give him credit as an actual fighter. That to me, they're 2 different things. They're 2 different dynamics at play when you talk about Mayweather and his greatness. There's the greatness as a businessman, and there's greatness as a fighter. And, you know, if you want to call him the greatest boxing businessman ever, I'm all for that. But if you want to call him the greatest fighter ever, I would never back your position on that, because he's nowhere near the great. He's not even on the greatest fighter list. He's not even on the greatest fighter list. And he will never be on the greatest fighter list. And with all that said, man, I want everybody's opinions. You know, do you feel like without a MayPac 2 fight, you know, these young fighters are not Pacquiao risking his career on? Or do you feel like even without Mayweather, you know, it's worth it for him to go after these young guys? Because somebody brought up a great point. I can't remember your name right now, but, you know, shout out to you. If Pacquiao's able to unify those 4 belts, very difficult task, but I think that would make boxing sellable again. I think that would make boxing more intriguing to people who are unwilling to tune in at the moment. And I think that would make Pacquiao, if he was able to pull that off, the greatest boxer in the history of boxing, to be able to pull something like that off at 40 years of age. Is that going to happen? No way. It's not going to happen, because number one, you know, a Crawford fight Possible. I don't see it happening, but possible. You know, especially with what's going on at Top Rank and them not having the crop of welterweights that they have. Now here's the problem with him unifying those belts. I don't feel like PBC is going to risk their young guys who have those belts and who might not be able to get good fights after Pacquiao's gone, for Pacquiao to run off with all the belts and then retire. Because that leaves a lot of people stuck in the toilet, man. You know, that's why I say there's a dynamic going on surrounding Pac. I don't think people expected him to be this good at this age, you know, and I think it's throwing a monkey wrench in everything. I think they were really trying to use him as a stepping stone, and he's just not a stepping stone. He's not at the level of being a stepping stone. I think he's going to be out of the sport before he becomes a stepping stone. But I do believe that there's a weird dynamic at play now to where, like I said, when it's going to unify these belts, you can't have Pacquiao just get all the belts and then run off into the sunset, because there's nobody else to build these young guys off of then at that point. You know, Mayweather's gone, Pacquiao's gone, and then Pacquiao has all the belts. So if Pacquiao runs off with all the belts, that means he's beaten Crawford, he's beaten Spence, he's beaten Thurman, and he's beaten Porter. And I believe Mikey Garcia has don't quote me on that, but I think Mikey has a belt as well. But I'm not sure. I think he has a 130, but I don't think he has a welterweight belt, though. I think he has 130-pound belts. But let me know what y'all think down in the comment section, man. Hit that description box if you need any Pacquiao gear. I got Pacquiao gear all over the place. If you want to be a part of the Ali Land Boxing Talk community, man, you have any type of contribution that you feel like could push the community forward, I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. Just hit me up in the community section. Just drop me a line on one of the, you know, the little cards or whatever you see in the community section. If you know any homeless people, man, I always say this, you know, give up a minute of your time, it could save a life, man. Hit that like button for me. Please subscribe. And if you ain't got nothing else to tell them about, man, just tell them about boxing. Ali Land Boxing Talk, Cardinal Red, and we